Most important function of the circulatory system is transferring blood inside our body. So it's composed of one mechanical pump that we call it heart. Heart pumps blood inside our vessels, and we have three type of blood vessels. Mm, they, they concluded arteries, capillaries that are smallest vessels inside our body, and then the blood comes back to the heart by veins. Also, we have other types of vessels that we call them lymphatic vessel system. Lymphatic vessel system uh, transfer lymph inside them because lymph uh, is plasma without red blood cells, and large molecules can transfer inside lymphatic blood vessels. I told you that we have three types of vessels: arteries, capillaries, and veins. But we have one structural model that repeats in all of these vessels. So we have three layers in the wall of the vessels. The innermost layer of the vessels is tunica intima. I told you layers in the wall of the vessels. The innermost layer of the vessels is tunica intima or tunica interna. That is the nearest layer to the lumen of the vessels. It composed of one epithelial layer. We call it endothelium. It is simply squamous, and like the other epithelial tissues in our body, is supported by one connective tissue. We call this connective tissue here subendothelial layer. It's very thin, loose connective tissue. So, tunica intima, that is the innermost layer in all vessels, also is the thinnest layer in all vessels, and is composed of endothelium, subendothelium, and in the medium sized arteries we have one structure that I will explain for you uh, after this um slide. Okay, we'll reach to this uh, topic. And the middle layer in the wall of the vessels, we call it tunica media. That it is thickest layer in the wall of arteries. Listen to me, please. It is thickest layer in the vessels, in the arteries, in all of the arteries. And it has one stroma that is composed of collagen type 3. Do you remember collagen type 3 or reticular tissue? That one type of fibers inside our body are reticular tissue. It composed of collagen type 3. It is one argyrophilic fiber, and they are thinner than collagen type 1. Do you remember in connective tissue? Stroma in the tunica media of all vessels is reticular, collagen type 3. But tunica media is the thickest layer in the wall of the arteries, so that it is one difference between the veins and in the arteries. Tunica media is the thickest layer in the wall of arteries. Okay? Also, we have smooth muscle cell and elastic fibers inside media. But the amount of these two, smooth muscle and elastic fiber, uh, is related to the distance of the vessels to the heart. When we have one big artery, such as aorta, we call this vessel elastic artery because the blood inside the aorta has many blood has high pressure and high speed, so the wall of artery must be resistant. So we have many elastic fibers inside the wall of aorta. We call it elastic artery. But when we reach to the muscular arteries, we have smooth muscle, more smooth muscles than elastic fibers. Or, or for example, in the veins, when the blood reach to the vein, speed is reduced and high and pressure of the blood is reduced, so the blood store in the veins, so we call the veins capacitation vessels. It produces one problem in the veins, in the persons that are obese, in the obesity, or the persons that stand many times in the day. They may be one problem. We call it varices, storing and residence of the blood inside the vessels lead to varices in the veins. Okay, and external layer, or uh, third layer in the wall of the vessels, we call it tunica externa or adventitia. It is thickest layer in the veins. Do you remember I told you thickest layer in the wall of arteries was tunica media, but thickest layer in the walls of the veins is tunica externa. So it's one very good difference that you can distinguish between the vessels, that is artery or vein. Okay, and but in the stroma of adventitia, in all vessels is collagen type 1 or bundles of collagen, such as in the bone, in the dentin, in the dermis of the skin. So that we have collagen type 3 or reticular tissue in media, all vessels, collagen type 1 in the tunica adventitia in all vessels. It is similar in arteries and veins, but media is thickest in arteries, media is thickest in artery, and adventitia is thickest in the veins. Also, we have elastic fibers, or maybe also smooth muscles in the tunica adventitia. Listen to me, please. We have one structure in the walls of the large, listen to me please, large vessels, such as large arteries or large veins. We call it vasa vasarum. Okay, because the nutrition of the wall of the vessels must be done via blood that is inside the vessels, okay, by diffusion. But when wall of the vessel is thick, this nutrition cannot be enough, so we have vasa vasarum. Vasa vasarum are small vessel. The nutrition of the wall of vessel is done by them. Okay, so we have, I repeat for you, three layer in the wall of the vessels. Tunica intima is the innermost layer and thinnest layer. Tunica media is middle layer, and tunica externa is the outer layer. And we go to next. This picture shows you muscular arteries. I want to tell you about the structure that are specialized in muscular arteries. In the muscular arteries between intima and media, we have one elastic layer. We call it internal elastic layer that separates intima from media in medium-sized artery. listen to me please, but is one part of intima, okay, separates intima from media. And also we have one thinner layer of elastic that separates media from the adventitia, and we call it external elastic layer. So when we are observing one vessels with microscope, when we can distinguish between the layers very good, so the layers are very good separately, we can distinguish that it's one medium size artery, because in medium size artery we have one obvious internal elastic layer that separates intima from media, and media from an external elastic layer that separates media from adventitia. But the other vessels we have not internal elastic layer or external. Listen to me please. We have elastic layer in the media of aorta, that is elastic artery, but we have not distinct or obvious internal elastic layer or external elastic layer, because all of the media in elastic vessels such as aorta composed of elastic fibers. Do you understand me? But in the muscular arteries, media composed of circular smooth muscles. So we have internal elastic layer and external elastic layer in the medium sized artery. We go to next. So I want to repeat for you that histology of blood vessels is composed of endothelium that I told you. We have one layer of squamous epithelium that covers the nearest layer to the lumen of the vessels, and we have also muscular layer that it is composed of smooth muscles. We have not a striated muscle in the wall of the vessels, and connective tissue that composed of collagen, elastic, and extracellular matrix. Okay. The endothelium, the vessels is very active endothelium. It can transport some molecule secretion of the different factors such as vasoactive and vasoconstrictive factors, and it also precipitating coagulation with viable palate granules, and in also secret growth factors such as vascular endothelial growth factors. Okay, thank you. You know, we have many problems inside our body that are related to the aging. Okay, our organs become old and the aging problems begin. Unfortunately, in the arteries, that nutrition of the muscular in the heart is related to them. Coronary arteries, these changes begin very early at 19 or 20 years old. It begins. It's related to many factors such as bad diet or diabetes or smoking, and more lipid in our diet, okay, more fat in our obesity. It ultimately leads to cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, as was common cause of death in the world. It is, I think, it's most common cause of the death in the world, that it leads to a myocardial infarction in the people. I want to explain for you more about atherosclerosis in next slides, okay? I told you these changes occurs in the coronary arteries. At first, it begins with rupturing of the internal elastic layer between intima and media. When the internal elastic layer ruptures, macrophages migrate to the subendothelial layer, and they phagocytose the lipid inside them, and they change to foam cells, the cells full of the lipid. These foam cells secrete at first fatty streaks, and these fatty streaks convert to fatty plaques, and then occlusion occurs inside the blood vessel. The occlusion lead to ischemia of the muscles, and so that myocardial infarction occurs. So that the first sign is rupturing of the internal elastic layer. The second is producing the foam cells, and then foam cells secrete fatty acids and the fatty plaques, and so we have occlusion in the blood vessels. Again, you observe the classification of the blood vessels. I told you we have three types. We have arteries, capillaries, and veins. We have three types of artery. Large arteries, such as elastic artery, aorta is one of these elastic artery, muscular artery, and arterial are small arteries, okay? And veins compose of large veins, medium sized veins, and we have also small veins that we call them venule. And we have also capillary that are smallest and most frequent vessels inside our body. Most of the vessels are inside our body are capillaries. In the capillaries, inside our body, because blood speed is very low, and because the wall of the capillary is very simplified and very thin, so that exchange of the materials between the blood and the tissues can occur. So we call the capillaries exchange vessels, so that the most important function of the vessels occurs in capillary exchange vessels. Also exchange we have in arterial and venule also, because their wall is also thin, but the most important cell in the exchange are capillaries. And also we have we call capillary and venule and arteriole together collectively microvasculature, because these vessels can seen only by microscope. We call them microvasculature: arteriole, venule, and capillary. Do you remember I told you veins are capacitation vessels because blood speed is very low, and pressure of blood is very low, so the wall of the veins with the same size in compared with artery is very thinner than artery. Listen to me please, I repeat for you. A vein with one side with the same size of an artery has thinner layer than artery, because blood pressure and speed in the wall in the vein is very low. Thanks. Look at one elastic artery wall with one thick media and very thin intima. Number one. Number two is media, very thick media, and number three is adventitia. Look at that media here is composed of elastic fibers. In muscular artery, we have tunica media composed of smooth muscles and maybe 40 layer. And also we have tunica interna that separates intima from media, and tunica externa that separates media from adventitia, so that internal and external lamina are obvious in muscular arteries, so the layers of the wall of muscular arteries are clearly distinguishable. Arter In arterial, tonico-intima is very thin. No internal elastic layer is obvious. Tunica media compose only one 1 to 2 layer of smooth muscle cell, and tunica externa or adventitia is also thin. The wall of capillaries is very simplified than the other vessels. I told you and repeat for you here. Capillary are the smallest of the vessels inside our body. Their endothelial lining are only one cell layer, and the capillaries measuring 5 to 10 micrometer in diameter, exchange of water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, many other nutrients, waste chemical occurs via the lumen of the capillaries because the wall of capillaries are very thin. Please look at the cell that that surrounding the lumen of the capillary. We call them pericyte. These pericytes are very similar to smooth muscle cells. We have no media and adventitia here, but we have one cell, we call it pericyte. Pericyte in its cytoplasm has many actin filaments, so contraction of pericytes is similar to smooth muscle cells. When I ask you in which cell we have pericyte, you must tell me in capillaries. Also in postcapillary, when we have pericytes, in the cytoplasm of pericytes, we have actin filaments, okay? So they act as smooth muscle cells, and also these cells are reparative cells. They helps to wound contraction in the blood vessels. Here you observe the classification of the capillaries. We have three types of capillaries. Most of capillaries inside our body are continuous. In continuous capillaries, the endothelial cells are attached to each other by tight junctions. We have no pore between the endothelial cells here. In the barriers inside our body, we have continuous capillaries such as blood brain barrier or blood thymic barrier or blood air barrier. We have continuous capillaries. In the second type of capillaries, we call them fenestrated. We have pore or fenestra between the endothelial cells, so the diffusion and exchange is rapid. When we need more exchange, we have fenestration in the Bowman's capsule of kidney, in the small intestine. We have fenestrated capillaries, but sinusoids are very, very important inside our body. They are irregular capillaries and large capillaries with variable diameter. They We can find the sinusoids in the lymph nodes, in the spleen, in the liver, in the bone marrow especially, and the transfer of the blood cells can done by via this sinusoid because they are irregular. We reach to the next slice to these vessels. Explain you more about them. I told you in continuous capillaries that we can find them in most body regions, also in the barriers. We have no pore, and the endothelial cells are attached to each other, and we have no pore between the endothelial cells. In fenestrated, I've told you we have fenestration or pores. We can find this type of vessels in the intestinal mucosa, choroid plexus, endocrine glands, and the Bowman's capsule of kidneys. These vessels characterized by circular fenestra pores that penetrate the endothelium, permit exchange of larger molecules in these type of vessels. The other names of sinusoid is discontinuous vessels. They resemble fenestrated. It means that they have also fenestra or pore between the endothelial cells. But they have irregular shape also. They have longer pores and very important note about these vessels that it is, all of the epithelial tissue have one layer beneath in them. We call it basement membrane or basal lamina. They, sinusoids, have thinner or no basement membrane. Many scientists think that they have no basement membrane, so blood movement can be very blood exchange can be easily done in sinusoid, and blood movement is very slow. These type of vessels found in liver, spleen, and especially in bone marrow, so large blood cells that uh, produce in bone marrow can come inside blood flow via these sinusoids.